Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of History After Hours. My name is Kevin Pumphrey, and with me, as always, is Mr. Ron Franklin, two history teachers debating current topics through the lens of history. It's Wednesday, January 8th, 2020, and just to kind of catch you up on this podcast, we're going to call this the Pondering Podcast. Last night was the day that Iran forces bombed two bases in northern Iraq, and we discuss it, and we ponder about it, and we dive into some of the past foreign policy events that are similar, and we try to predict what might happen and maybe the media's role in all this, etc. So once again, it is two history teachers just babbling on about the current event for this podcast. We are at Collective Coffee Live in downtown Hot Springs, Arkansas, this coming Tuesday, January 14th, from 5 to 7. We play music at first, and then we have the podcast with the students asking us questions. And that's always a really fun time. So if you get a chance, come join us down there. Once again, find us on Apple and Google and whatnot. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot as well. And yes, so with that being said, enjoy the podcast. Okay, what is it, January 8th? 2020. Wow.
Well,
Happy New Year, everyone.
welcome to the new decade.
Yeah. So this is History After Hours, and this is going to be a pondering podcast trying to figure out what is going on. So at this point, what's the guy's name? Soleimani was killed by a surgical drone strike on a few days ago. And we knew that Iran would retaliate. And last night or yesterday, around 5 o'clock-ish Eastern time or something, they retaliated by launching a lot of missiles, 12, 20? I don't remember. A lot of missiles.
Tens of. Yeah.
Ballistic missiles at two Iraqi bases in northern Iraq that had U.S. soldiers stationed there.
Mm-hmm.
As of now, I haven't heard of any American casualties.
I haven't seen any reports of American casualties or Iraqi casualties for that matter.
And everyone from both sides is running around, hair on fire. We're all going to die. But let's get into it a little bit. First of all, from what you've seen on the media, is it overreaction? Is it too much? Or are they playing this pretty right? Are they cautious enough? I mean, because there is that. Obviously, let me ask you a different question that's easier to answer. Is this the most serious thing that's occurred since Trump has been president? As far as possible war and all that?
I think it has the potential to be. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to gauge. It's so sort of new, because it's happening in real time. So I don't know all of the intel. Obviously, I wonder why we chose that moment to strike against that guy. I know that he's been active against us in the past, and I know that we just had recently, just a couple of days before he was taken out. Iranian-backed, basically militants storming the American embassy in Iraq, not taking it, but causing damage and shutting it down for a while and causing mayhem. And then the administration then announces that we've killed this guy at the Iraqi airport. So one, I have a question about what justification do we have to do that? Mm-hmm. And they claimed imminent threats, and I assume they're going to be forthcoming about what those imminent threats were. I guess they don't have to be, but it seems like they keep saying, well, it was urgent that we did this, and that's our justification.
Now, Pompeo seems to be the most hawkish of the Trump advisors. This is one of those things. This is why we're calling it a pondering podcast, because how much information do we really know? If there was you literally in a week could look back and go, man, that was a good decision. Thank goodness.
You could say that it's imminent, or there were imminent threats, but I mean,
Show me, right?
You'd like to know.
As a citizen, hopefully we will know sooner rather than later.
All right. So the other question I have, though, is why is an Iranian general in Iraq? I mean, he was killed at the Iraqi airbase, one of the airports near Baghdad, yeah?
That's a good question.
His whole line of cars, the convoy was hit, and he was killed.
I heard it was it only killed him and one other person. Like this strike was
It hit that vehicle, but I think there were more than, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, too.
How scary would that be, though, if we're able to target with a drone?
Just that one vehicle?
one vehicle.
Yeah.
And, that shows
but why was he there? I've heard that everything from we don't know why he was there to he was there plotting things to he was there for some sort of reconciliation thing after the whole was he coming for talks, high-level talks, to try to prevent another sort of storming of the embassy and try to calm that situation down, and we took him out at that moment? Why was he there? I haven't really heard that. I ponder why
in the Iranian
he was
government,
in the country.
He's technically the leader of the Quds, not the Kurds, the Quds.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, this is
I heard that he's like second only to the Ayatollah.
Maybe so. I think, well, from my understanding, his role is he is in charge of international proxy armies.
Okay.
So, like, if you want to go to war in Latin America, he's the leader. Or if you want to go, he represents Iran, but he's kind of in charge of proxy wars. Now, once again, Iran has not been a good actor. They have not been great. They have caused instability, according to us at least, over the last. I mean, this is the Iranian deal was done because of such an unstable.
Right, and they're at odds with Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. That's part of the reason why we see the Syria. They're on one side, we're on the other. The Saudis are with us, Russia's with Iran, and they're backing Assad. So we're against that because we hate Assad. They all hate Israel, so that's going to put us on the defensive. They're fighting a proxy war in Yemen between themselves right now, between the Saudis and the Iranians. Who's gonna push for more control over that region? Right? Is it going to be Saudi Arabia and the people who back them, UAE, for example, or is it going to be Iran and possibly Pakistan, who's going to be more influential? And I think that's that balancing act that we're seeing play out. But. And I think that this Soleimani guy probably had some influence in those conflicts, right? So then,
is this going to embolden a group like Hezbollah against Israel,
right,
to get at us,
right?
Iran and everybody. You can't go toe to toe with the United States. It's a suicide mission. Mm-hmm. We hope it didn't go there at least. So you do these things, and you just wonder where the dominoes are gonna start falling, and my question was, what's China's stance
it was either Pence or Pompeo that just said or tried to link Soleimani to the 9/11 attackers. I don't know if they did a good job of trying to make that link, but I think that was something they threw out there just to see if it would stick. I haven't heard that pushed anymore, but I heard that at one point.
I think the admission from both sides is that this is a bad dude. This is a guy who...
I don't disagree with that.
The world will probably be better without him in it. But
we do have international laws about governing the credibility of, we need to defend ourselves. Everybody has the right to defend themselves. Were we defending ourselves by attacking this guy? We don't really know that that's true. We said that's true, but we don't know that. And if it is, then okay. But let's have it out in the clear. Let's be a little more transparent about it. And they're real slow to do that for some reason. And maybe there's more behind it. Again, we don't know the depths of this. Obviously, maybe they need to hold that information back for some reason because there's something else pending or what? No,
Yeah.
It's funny, but you brought up China. Do other countries jump in? Are there dominoes falling because of this? I
hope they don't.
World War III has been trending on Twitter for a while now, and Franz Ferdinand and all of that. I don't feel that that's where this is going.
Yeah, I don't either. I think this is I think it's overblown, and of course I might come back to about these words. This could be the start of something horrific. I do think it's going to be overblown anyway. I think everything's overblown in the media, especially that you take a side and this is what it is. I mean, I've heard commentators,
especially like just social media, because every Twitter troll out there is just throwing whatever they spew, whatever want, and then other people join in or attack them back. And
Well, if you listen to right-wing logical, to at least some degree, commentators like Ben Shapiro, he's saying, no, this dude was a terrorist. This was a good act. This is what should have happened. It should have happened long ago.
How does he know? I mean, no offense, but how does he know that?
Exactly. Then you have right-wingers saying Trump is trying to start a war.
You even had Rush Limbaugh come out either yesterday or the day before, and he was like, look, where's the proof? I mean, if you got Limbaugh questioning you.
Well, that's the thing is like, you know, I go back to Obama's run for president when he was really talking about no more regime change wars. We're going to get out of this stuff, kind of like what Trump did to get elected.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Americans are tired of this this everlasting war. And then Obama comes president, and we stay in it. I mean, you know, we did pull out of Iraq
and Afghanistan.
I mean, yeah, and Afghanistan. But the drone strikes escalated, and it's not like we were, you know, he's still killing people. But I think with Obama at the helm, and this is where it all kind of comes back, because, you know, it all begins and ends with Trump. If this had happened under the Obama administration, this guy was killed, I think there would be concern. But I think the fact that you had Obama as the president, who seems to be a calm, measured person that's getting intelligence, that's making the decisions based on future consequences, he's probably thought it all through. It makes people feel a little easier than Trump doing it. And I say that because Trump has been so erratic, and I don't think that Trump thinks about the next day. Now, hopefully he has people around him. But I think that's a big part of it, is that Trump's impulsiveness. It's, you know, this was my worry when people ask.
Wonder why we didn't try to arrest the guy as opposed to a drone strike.
Well, that's the hope where the imminent threat comes in. We've got to wonder, like, we just don't know. There's so much we don't know, and I think about this every day.
He's in Iraq. We basically have, right? We're there with troops, and we're there training their troops. Like, don't we have? Couldn't someone have rolled up on that convoy and said, "Hey, get out and come with us"?
Good question. I don't. I know so little about.
That's why
this.
we're pondering.
That's why we're pondering. This is a pondering podcast. I think every day, like, you know, we get what the news gives us from different sources. We try to do our best to figure out what's going on. But, you know, I think about like McConnell and Schumer meeting behind closed doors, talking consistently. You know, that never gets out in the media. There's so many private conversations. You know, I always think about the president. Like, you don't know what you're getting into, and then you take that oath, and then they take you in a back room somewhere and go, "All right, sit down. We got some stuff to unload on you."
What about the admission that that the administration met with top Republican senators and Russia before they announced the rest of this or their intentions to the rest of Congress?
Yeah, that's worrying. Listen, the foreign policy that we've had has no consistency to it, whether it's bombing Syria because of chemical or pulling troops out of Syria and let the Kurds fight. And then,
unless you tell Russia to go, look, don't do anything, because Russia and Iran are allies.
Yeah.
And so if this is, you know, maybe that was prudent, I don't know. I'm pondering.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe you need to inform Putin because you're like, look, this is not against y'all. Don't react. We're about to do this. You're not going to be able to stop it, but at the same time, we don't want you to overreact to it.
How much of this that we've had in foreign policy, this just craziness, goes back to the fact that Trump hires and fires a lot of people. Mm-hmm. There's generals that come and go. There's leaders of this that can defense, and you just go down the list. Secretary of State comes and goes. Maybe this is one big reason it seems so erratic. And then you got him at the helm.
Pompeo, I wonder what his influence was, because I know that he's been, like you said, hawkish, especially vocal about his disdain for Iran.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see what their end game is, because there are people around Trump that think forward, that are true patriots, that love our country, that don't want to see us all go to war.
Right.
Now you got to wonder what their strategy is. You know, I've always worried that once again, I think Trump gets too much blame and too much credit, just like all presidents. But this is where I worry, is him being the decision maker, the commander in chief at a point when we have a crisis. I'm not saying we're in a crisis situation, but you give him the power, the war power, suspend habeas corpus or whatever, wherever you go with that, with privacy and Patriot Acts and what, just think about the past. We're history teachers. You give him that much power to kind of do what he wants to do. That's what worries me.
Were there any moments last night when you sort of were like, well, buckle up, boys, here we go? I mean,
I heard what was happening on my when I got home, but we're trying to sell our house. I'm tucking kids in.
Right.
I'm getting texts from you and Nixon. I'm like, what's going on? It's funny because we're in this group text message between me, you, and one of our colleagues, Nixon, not Richard, but and y'all are texting each other, and I'm getting these alerts on my phone, and it's like, what do you think? War now? And I'm like, what just happened? I missed that. So I had to do a little research, with my 5 minutes before cooking supper and cleaning the. That's probably the difference between our lives. Personal lives is like I've got kids to feed, and we're trying to sell a house, so I don't have the time to. So maybe that's why I'm not freaked out. But it was concerning me to hear y'all go back and forth.
Well, I mean, there were moments where I was like, those strikes were happening as we were texting, and we're waiting for what our response is. Casualty reports, and are there going to be any more strikes? And any word from the White House, any word from anybody in Congress at all? What do we do next? Is the president going to make a speech? Are we going to war? They're mobilizing troops. Seemingly, there's the images coming out of troops lined up in the airport in Atlanta about to ship out. We know we've been mobilizing people towards that direction for a while now, plus the people that we've already had in the multiple bases around the East Asia, and the Arabian Peninsula. So that seemed funky, and
here's what I want.
A little unnerving. But I never really kind of got to the point where I thought, okay, we are at war. And then Iran comes out with a message. Hey, we've concluded, Nixon asked me, he's like, what? He goes, well, what do you think our response will be? And I said, it kind of depends on what they hit.
Yeah,
did they hit dirt or did they hit somebody?
Have you heard about any U.S. casualties?
No, not at this point, no. So that gives us, hold on, but the what I was going to say was that gives us the ability to kind of go, okay, we did a thing, you did a thing, you feel good about that, you broadcast it to your people like, we won't take any crap from America, and so you can kind of pacify your crowd. We don't have to do anything else because you didn't really hit anything, you didn't hurt anybody, it's not tit for tat at this point. We can kind of let that ride. Trump comes out about the same time and he goes, it's all good. And so
he did have a positive tweet.
Yeah, so that made me feel a little bit better,
Yeah, I think what you just said is what we want. I think that's what I want to happen. Now, once again, we don't know what's going on. This is a pondering podcast. We're just thinking out loud. But I hope that gave them enough to tell their people, look, we're willing to shoot ballistic missiles towards U.S. citizens. This was us. But it's probably more of a propaganda tool to kind of keep control and to show that Iran still is powerful. Trump, I think, could walk away from this. I mean, they shot a U.S. drone down. We didn't respond.
Right.
A couple harsh tweets, and I think he could do this similar. We killed one of their major leaders,
right,
if not their second in command.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It's not an equal thing what they did to us, right?
No. No.
So I think we can.
But it could be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like you said at the beginning, they know they can't go toe to toe with us. However, they're allied with people who might be able to go toe to toe with us. But nobody wants that.
Yeah. Let's look at history. We're history teachers. There's been plenty of times where the United States has walked away, where we could have escalated. Jimmy Carter, famously with the hostages, didn't, he attempted a rescue mission, but was justified in going in militarily at that point, and probably could have
took a shot at it.
Took a shot at it.
Operation Iron Claw didn't work
out. Reagan had several 140 Marines killed in Lebanon or whatever. Let's get out of there.
And stuff.
Let's just tuck tail and leave. And we did. And he didn't pay a price for it. Of course, that might be why he's called the Teflon president. If anyone's the Teflon president, it's got to be Trump. But here's my worry, is that does he really want to walk away and get no political... I mean, I'm sure his base is fired up. A lot of my friends who are Trump supporters are fired up.
I kind of worry about the mega evangelicals that are in his ear hoping for Armageddon.
Oh.
That nothing against evangelicals generally, but there are radical people inside that movement that group that really want there to be this, hey, let's let Jesus come back now and do the separation. I hope those people aren't in his ear.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about people, very extremist religious people of any faith, is if you don't value this current life. You know what I mean? That's just what terrorists do when they run themselves into buildings. If you don't value our current life, that we should try to save humans, and let's just throw it against the wall for various reasons, that's always a scary thing. I don't know that that's it. I really just, it's so hard to figure out what's going on because, once again, there's no consistent foreign policy. Mm-hmm. We don't know the end game for this. Trump has been preaching no regime changes. He's been pouting, hey, look what I've done. I mean, I've pulled us out of Syria. And, we got to get out of these proxy wars. It doesn't make sense for him to now want to go in to Iran, which would get us bogged down for who knows. And, to me, they're more dangerous than Iraq was.
Are they poised to take over Iraq?
Well, that's the thing. They said the end game would be kicking out all U.S. soldiers. That's what they say from Iraq.
But like you have, since we toppled Saddam Hussein, we've had much more Shia-led governance there, and that ties right in with Iran. And they seem to have lots of people in the country. Like these were Iranian-backed protesters that stormed the embassy the other day. Yeah. And so how much influence are they having in the country now? And if we back out, are they going to make a play to take the country? I mean, I don't know. Or
I don't either. This would
become allies with them against us in Israel.
Your former Marine friend, get his take on
I need
the
to
state of Iraq. I don't know if he keeps up with the current state of Iraq, but he was there on the ground.
Yeah.
It's always nice because, once again, we're pondering. We're history teachers. We're thousands of miles away from reality. But I think you can go. I think the worst mistake a U.S. citizen can make now is watching one news outlet.
Oh, definitely.
And that's it, because nothing is. And by the way, we're studying in American history the Gilded Age. Voter participation was 80% plus of those who could vote. I mean, of course, women couldn't vote at this point, so we're talking about late 1800s. And there generally was no good newspapers, no good news outlets. It was all partisan. It was party loyalty. This is the spoil system at its worst, corruption and all that. We've been here before, but we haven't been here with social media where average citizens have this kind of access. So I think it's very important as history teachers that we keep pushing our students and people listening to this podcast, diversify your news consumption. Mm-hmm. Don't just watch CNN. Don't just watch Fox. Get foreign sources as well. It gives, I think it just gives you a better overall feeling. And I think that's what's helped me in this time.
If your news agency's main goal is to criticize other news agencies, you probably need to be changing the channel.
Yeah.
Like, report on things. Quit giving me opinion. Tell me what's happening. So when they start to delve into the opinion-based shows, that's when I change channels.
Like Fox News, as much criticism as we give them and I've given them, and it's just like state TV and all that, they still have a few anchors that try to play it. Now, they still have to cater. They still are biased, but they're news. Then you got the crazy opinion shows in the morning and at night that try to draw, same thing with CNN. Mm-hmm. You've got some news anchors that are doing their best and journalists, and then you've got the crazy opinion shows that try to stoke the fire and get rating. I mean, not everything is breaking news. Breaking news. Donald Trump has toilet paper stuck to his shoe as he walks to Air Force One. That happened, but I don't think that's breaking news. Now, what we've been talking about today is breaking news. Mm-hmm. And my hope is that we don't retaliate and other countries kind of let's just distance, let this settle down. I don't know.
I've only heard from our initial our strike against them. I've only heard other countries say, "Look, that was a bad idea." Not. I mean, obviously, Iran's going to condemn. Oh, how dare you? Mm-hmm. But most everybody else was like, "Look, this is problematic. You don't."
Yeah, that's another problem is Trump has really hurt our support with our allies by also attacking our friends. You feel that under Obama we would have had more support from Europe, from other countries.
I think everybody, it would be, that comes back to what we said a while ago about some level of transparency. We, I think, for an international audience as well, need to lay out the rationale for what we did, because otherwise we just look like arrogant assholes.
And isn't it weird that in a way Trump is the most transparent president we've ever had, because he lays everything out on Twitter for you to see what he's thinking, and where Obama, he was very measured in what he let people know.
Trump may
so
not
it's
be
a weird.
Trump may not be opaque, but what he's giving you may not be truthful.
Oh, that's
he gives
for
you
sure.
a lot of stuff, but you don't know if it's accurate.
Yeah, and what's weird is he might think it's accurate.
Well, right.
That's the thing. It's like he's giving you what he, George Costanza's line on Seinfeld, if you believe it, it's not a lie. It's just, I don't know. We live in a weird times. We have so much weirdness going on. And I want to encourage people to not jump on the one side extremist bandwagon.
I also don't like these people that are just like the mentality of, well, we have to go to war now. Like I saw people, and again, I try not to follow commentaries on social media, but that's the general reactions of like, well, it's time to lock and load. I'm like, just calm down. We do not need to get into another.
Yeah, it's also not a good excuse to. This is the thing that needs to bring Americans together. I don't like that either. I don't like using war or potential war to start uniting the country. We should have united the country.
And there were those people out there last night too. And yes, I understand support men and women in uniform. It would be great if we could support men and women in uniform by not getting them involved in stuff that's unnecessary. Again, we don't know that this was necessary. It very well may be. I don't know, but we don't know that. But you're going to send people into harm's way potentially without real justification. I mean, I just don't want to see, I don't want to be another Tonkin incident,
No, I know.
Where you go, okay, let's gear up now that we have this thing that's questionable. Even McNamara himself said later on that that probably didn't happen. And he admitted that later. All right, so but I do support military families, and I do support our military and the protections for home and the homeland. However, don't tell me that in a time of intensity in the country that we can't question leadership because somehow that hurts our troops. Like that doesn't jive with me.
Yeah, and listen, my worry was war would, Trump is going to try to use a possible war to get reelected. It doesn't always work. War doesn't always work. They point to the 2004 where George Bush got reelected by saying, hey, we shouldn't change horses during the middle of this. But look, the Korean War, Truman was super unpopular. There's no way he was going to win an election. Mm-hmm. He finished FDR's term, barely got reelected. The Korean War was going on, and he lost Vietnam. Killed LBJ's presidency. Right. And, of course, by the end of George W. Bush's term, and, of course, the Persian War, even the success of that didn't help George H.W. Bush. So
it did not.
War doesn't always work like people think it is. It's not like the whole country's going to come behind the president, especially in this day of age where it's so globalized and we know what's going on everywhere.
Political disunity does not automatically equate to, we hate the troops. And I think that's where some people were going last night. You're unpatriotic because you don't support this president. No, calm down. That's not how this works.
Let me ask you this question. How much does the media want us to go to war? How good is this for media? The dying cable media of CNN. Most people don't get their news from CNN and Fox and all that.
I hate to think of it that way, but I can't avoid wondering.
Are they beating the war drums for, obvious reasons?
It is a ratings cash grab, I suppose.
Look, you can listen to podcasts to get a lot of things, but what you can't get is pictures from the ground, bombs going off, the current, the live breaking news as much as you can from cable news. And I'm just hoping that the media that's on TV, that's on cable, satellite, whatever, they're not, hey, this is really good for business. And war is money. War makes money. I'm hoping that is not the case.
Well, if that was true, though, don't you think there'd be more reporting about our 20 years almost worth of fighting in Afghanistan? You rarely see anything about that.
Yeah, that's true. Although I think it's the potential that gets it here. We've been in, we were in Afghanistan. It was like, okay, this is a tired story. Let's move on until something crazy happens. And nothing really did. Or maybe stuff was going on.
Or American casualties are so few and far between now that it's not newsworthy somehow because it doesn't have that flash and bang to it. This does because missiles are firing in the middle of the night and things are on fire. How many times did they show that smoldering wreckage of Soleimani's convoy? They mentioned that there was there's pictures of the ring that he always wore and the hand sticking out of the wreckage. And I'm like, don't show that, don't show that, don't show that. And I didn't see that they did, but they did talk about it. I'm like, oh my.
And
they seem to be gleefully able to report that. Yeah. Which really was disconcerting.
Yeah, I don't like that either. And I also really hope that American citizens realize that, I think that Iran, Iraq, a lot of these are bad actors. They're bad. They're doing some really bad things that we don't like as Western. But guess who they're hurting the most? The people in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. They're not hurting Americans as much as they're hurting their own people.
I was pretty impressed with the fact that Iran came out and said, we're not going to attack civilians. We're not going to attack American people. This is not against you. This is against even the death to America chants. To clarify that, they're talking about our political influence and our militarism and our economic sanctions and all those things. That's what they're actually talking about. And they actually came out and said, we will not target American people. Military targets only if we target anything at all, which they obviously then now have.
I don't support anything about Iran, but I think what they did was smart by doing what they did.
I'm not saying that I support them.
Oh no, of course not.
But I do. I wonder about their people too. Yeah.
That's the thing. Their people suffer. The Iraqis, we lose sight that we think it's them against us. It's not them against us. It's them against the millions that live in the Middle East, the billions of people that are hurt by their propaganda, their war, their terrorism, their extremist religions. It's kind of going through a thing right now, just like the Catholic Church did during the Middle Ages. I mean, it's their own people. Who do Muslim ISIS terrorists hurt the most? Well, Muslims that live locally. Mm-hmm. And we need to keep that in, because I'm sure when we killed that dude, they probably got in a back room and said, all right, we've got to have a very careful response to this. We got to respond. We got to maintain power. Right. There can't be a coup in our country.
We have to prove to our people that we're willing to retaliate because that's partly what is being called. I mean, millions of people were calling for that. Do something. Don't let...
We don't want the United States to retaliate to our retaliation.
No.
They don't want. They don't want to go against us.
That's exactly.
They don't want thousands and thousands of Americans pouring over their borders with our technology and look.
But that's the other thing too. That's what I was saying earlier. Nobody wants that. I don't think anybody's allies on either side really. And again, I know that World War III was trending. I just don't see that because it doesn't make sense.
No,
it does not make sense for anybody to go to that level.
It makes sense once again. My only kind of thing is the media can make a lot of money off of this. And I hope that's not the case. I hope none of them want. But you just got to think they're profit-making models. I wonder if that crosses their mind like, hey, if we put, because they do everything extreme, right? If we push this, if we get people afraid. You might be able to get
just as much mileage, though, out of because last night I saw Hannity and Laura Ingraham bashing CNN for their lack of support over the president in this moment. Yeah. And so they can milk that. Watch us and don't, so maybe they can gain ratings that way because they'll try to draw people away from or try to deepen their base by saying you can't trust those guys because, they're unpatriotic because they don't support the president.
Let's do
this. So maybe that'll be the thing. They'll turn on each other more than.
For 1 month, let's just have 1 hour news shows like back in the day. We'll have a 7:00 news hour with some boring guy and just reads the news to us. That would probably, of course, obviously we have internet, Twitter and all that, but just let's say we didn't, and all you did, that would probably calm everybody down and be like,
these opinion-based shows, it's not news, it's newsertainment. They're trying to entertain a base, both of them.
I think younger people are better at recognizing that, but for older people who listen to
I don't know how many young
Peter Jennings
people,
for 20 years, and now they're listening to Fox News, and it looks the same.
I don't know how many young people actually just spend a whole lot of time on either of those channels, though.
I don't think. Yeah, I agree with you. Although I will say younger people are more engaged. At least high school students are way more engaged now. They talk about current events constantly to me.
Right.
That's never happened before about the last 3-4 years. Is that good? Yeah, I think it's more mindful of where we're at. But yeah, I do think we have an older demographic that watches these opinion shows as they are news. Like they used to watch Peter Jennings and Ted Koppel, and now you got Sean Hannity. Okay, he's sitting behind a desk. He's talking about the news. This must be true, or whoever. Chris Cuomo, whatever. And, I don't know. Maybe I think the middle-aged younger people are a little better at discerning. We're in the middle of this, right? Mm-hmm. We're in the middle of this shift, and it's going to be interesting to see how much the media drives us. I hope we don't retaliate unless there's something we don't know. Like I said, Pondering podcast. Mm-hmm. If no new really evidence and information, I do like you. I want to know why we did it, when we did it. I want to know why the United States chose to do that. But as long as nothing else happens, I think we could walk away from this escalation.
I don't like what they were trying to do with, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
He was a guy who helped organize the 9/11 stuff.
Right.
That's not imminent.
Yeah. There's plenty of people involved in 9/11 probably from that area that we're not still tracking down. I mean, that was a horrible event. We did get the leader. We got the major.
I also didn't like the idea about Trump threatening to target cultural sites. Like, that's not
That's
cool.
actually illegal, I think. Isn't the Geneva?
It is very illegal.
1954?
Yeah. That's not a thing. We're not allowed to do that. But he threatened it, and I'm like, dude.
When I saw that, I thought of that in the same vein as lock her up, and he's going to just say, that's just Trump. I don't think any serious people under him were saying that. I don't think Pompeo would come out and say we're going to.
Why would he even bring that up, though?
Well, let me tell you about Donald Trump. Yeah, he says crazy things. And I don't know that
because he has to sound the most extreme.
Yeah, when he said we have 52 sites and everybody immediately connected that to the hostages, I said, yeah, that's true. And then I thought, who told him about the Iraq? Like, I don't think he knew that.
As far as I know, he's not a student of history.
No, and this is what I wanted in the presidential debates. I just wanted one person to go, all right, here's a big map. Just Hillary, pull out a big map. And I'm not saying I was a Hillary supporter, but I wish somebody during even the Republican debates, one of those guys, Kasich, put out a big world map and say, all right, Trump, point to Iraq, and just watch him fumble with it. I don't have to do that, or whatever. Or just ask basic questions. How many amendments are there to the Constitution? He wouldn't know. I mean, I really think that. I really don't think he would know. I'm not saying you have to know that to be a good president, but you need to know some of that. I literally think 9th grade civics questions would have really thrown him off.
The civics test that we have to give.
Mm-hmm. Now, he's not good at that, and that's fine. And I don't think you need a test to be president. But he's good at other things, and that is getting the left on fire.
Oh,
that's one good thing about Trump is he is, if when he's not being scary,
he's a troll.
He's funny,
but he's a troll though.
He is a troll.
I mean, you can if you ignore the serious ramifications from some of his actions, it is, I suppose, entertaining in a macabre
sad as him
sort of
attacking that 16-year-old, Greta, whatever. Just chill. Just it's just like,
what are you doing?
You're a 75-year-old man. I hope Biden, Warren, and Sanders are all against Trump. I just hope the oldest. I just want to see how old we can go. Let's get somebody in their 80s. This is insane.
Break out the oxygen tanks.
Yeah, I'm not for ageism, but the brain does atrophy at some point. We literally start dying at 25. By the way, do we know what time the bell rings?
We have like 10 minutes, I think.
Okay, let's end on a more positive note. Let's talk about life insurance.
We're
sponsored
in the middle of all the hoopla last night. I was busy rocking my new grandbaby, so that was awesome.
Yes.
So I could get away from those crazy things and deal with this new intense part of our life.
When stuff happened on Twitter or on your phone, did you start rocking faster?
Soothing myself while I'm soothing the baby.
What's going on, Papa?
It's going to be all right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, she was born early morning on the 31st, so New Year's Eve baby.
All healthy, everybody good,
everything's great.
Mother's good.
Mm-hmm.
So you have now been you've been a grandfather for longer than this, but technically to a baby that's outside the womb.
Yeah.
It's been a few days.
Yes. A week yesterday. Yeah.
How's it feel?
That's great. I don't know how to describe it to you other than just like pure joy. and you just can't soak it up enough. And I think part of that is the fact that I know she's not going to stay at my house
Yeah.
all the time.
I think, I'm ready for Papaw stories and grandfather stories for you to talk about how great it is, because that's what I hear. I hear it's great. You get them, you soak it up, and then you give it back for the hard stuff.
Well, yeah, but though there's this weird melancholy that goes too, because it might be days and weeks before I see her. I don't think that's the case, because my daughter and her husband live closely to us, so only about 30 minutes away. But at the same time, we were with them in the hospital, and we've helped them kind of get organized and situated at home, and we get used to being around them for several days. We were with them the whole time.
Oh,
and
yeah,
so now, and then they go home, and now we close the door, and it's like, wow, this thing that brings us so much joy is now over there, and we can't have access to her easily. And that's kind of a weird thing. So it's a little sad at the same time to know there's going to be this distance, because, we're so intensely in love with this little baby that,
Can you compare your wife having your children with your daughter now having a baby as labor was going on? And is there any, did it take you back, or?
I think that part of what it did that too. And especially holding, our baby granddaughter's name is Scarlett, holding her, remembering that it's only been 25 years since I did the same thing with my daughter. Yeah, there's that weird recollection, because they, babies smell good, and so it's like, those things bring you back. It's not just the visuals, because she so yeah, it's odd. And then again, but you have to learn to let that go, and that's going to be difficult.
Yeah,
I'm having trouble with that already. We came back to work after the holidays, and I was used to holding her a lot, and then I had to come here and not do that, and so it's going to be a new balancing act for us. But I'm ready for it. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, you don't seem like a grandpa. Like when I was a kid and growing up, even now, when I think of grandfathers, I think of my grandparents, and they were in their 70s, and because I'm a young kid, so I think of grandparents as being these old. Hey there, Sonny, just tap you on the head. You're going to be a lot more involved. You're active. You're going to be able to, my grandparents were older, like I said, and they got around and did stuff. But, we're kind of in an age where you can live a lot longer. You're healthier than probably generations in the past. And, it's going to be interesting to see this evolution, because I get to see it before it happens to me. And hopefully it's a long time. My daughter's 11 and my stepdaughter's 10. So hopefully it's quite a while.
You got some distance there.
But
it's great.
That's awesome.
That's
a great Christmas present.
And then there's that other package that comes along with that, which is where you worry about, because I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm a control freak, but I like to have things in order. You know what I mean? And so I want to help them as much as we can, but at the same time, they have to live their lives, and they have to raise this child. And so we're trying to figure out how to not be intrusive.
I'm sure they're going to be calling and asking some questions. And
and
especially Michelle, she's probably going to get bombarded with.
We want to be helpful, but we don't want to be, we don't want to control.
Well, there's going to be a bunch of like, it looks like her ankle is swollen. What is that? There's a spot on the back of her neck. There's going to be all these things that come up that, you just instinctively call your parents and go, hey, what about this? Did she ever have this? It's what's funny is like when I think about my wife at the time having our daughter, I worried really for my daughter. Now thinking about my daughter having a baby, I'm still going to be worrying for my daughter.
Yeah, we worry about her and the baby.
Yeah, when my daughter does anything, if she sings on stage, or I'm a nervous wreck. It's like if I did it, it's fine. But yeah, that's tough without the control. Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations, man. That's a great way to end 2019. This is an interesting way to start 2020.
Yeah.
But the podcast will roll on. We'll be at Collective Coffee here in just a few days. So if you get this podcast, it will be Tuesday, January 14th. I believe that is going to be the Collective Coffee next live podcast. So with that, goodbye, everybody.